Welcome to the Service to Civvy podcast, where today's guest is Steve Mullan. Steve, welcome, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark. Yeah, I'm very good. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, good stuff. Mate, I know nothing about you, your service life. I know obviously a little bit about your professional background now. So can you just, for the benefit of me and the viewers and listeners, tell us a little bit about your service history, just to get us started?
Yeah, so I served. Well, I joined in 1998 in the Royal Artillery. So you can get all the drop shot dits in now if you like. Yeah, so basically, joined up in 1998, and then obviously went to Purbright, done my basic training stuff there in Larkhill, and then I got posted out to 26 Regiment Royal Artillery out in Gutterslow.
Okay.
So I started off doing a bit of German soldiering, which was always entertaining and insightful for a young soldier at the time. And then obviously from Germany, I then got posted back to the UK, back to Larkhill to 19 Regiment. So our battery 127 went across. And then I started kind of building up my career. And then I kind of worked in the G4 element side of life. So the logistics and stores world within the artillery. And then from there, so obviously I got to Lance Bombardier, then become a technical sergeant within the QM's department. And that's where my kind of background started formulating, started building, is through the G4 chain, so the supply chain management, as well as managing vehicles, managing equipment. And then I took on the role as BQMS in 2012. And that's where kind of my new career kind of started off from. So from 2012, it's a case where my QM approached me and he said, Steve, we've got a health and safety inspection in 6 weeks' time, and you're the man. And my first reaction to him was, he goes, boss, I know nothing about health and safety. I don't know how to do a risk assessment. I don't know what policy was. I didn't know anything. He goes, well, I'm sure you make it work. I went, okay. So I kind of got voluntold into it, the good old military style.
Yeah.
And from that voluntold type of style, I kind of went to different regiments, stole stuff off their websites and their SharePoint, kind of formulated some form of health and safety files and policies and, cut and paste, delete, insert sort of thing. Not really having a clue, but we kind of made it work and blagged my way through it. And by the end, we had the inspection, and the inspector, he turned around and said, do you know what? That was a brilliant inspection. So you've done really well. And I said, did you do all this? I said, yeah, I did. He goes, oh, brilliant. So this could be a good career for you. And to be honest, I kind of blagged my way through the inspection, not really knowing how to do risk assessments, how to do policies and all that sort of thing. Anyway, my boss turned around and goes, well done, Steve. Congratulations. You've got me a nice bottle of Morgan Spice, as a big thank you, because, went from zero to hero in a very short, rapid time like you did, and managed to drag the regiment through the health and safety part. And then after that, I kind of had a bit of food for thought. I went, do you know what? This is something that I could potentially get into later on in life. And then I just turned around and said to my boss in the QM, I said, look, can I go do the QM's course? He goes, it's a no-brainer for him because he didn't want to do it. And he said, yeah, go for it, Steve. So I went away, done a 2-week course up in Winchester. No, sorry, not Winchester, in Deep Cut. And then I'd done that 2-week course. I thought, it's not too bad. And then from there, I've done my NEBOSH General, NEBOSH Fire, NEBOSH Construction, and I've done the full suite of the NEBOSH courses.
Yeah.
And then obviously I was BQMS at the time, and I'd done 5 years as a BQMS, done all sorts of different tours, different sites and different places, etc. And then I come off the board, the WO2 board, and said, right, where would you like to go? You've got a choice of 3 places. And good old army style fashion, I said, well, you either got Catterick, you either got Forney Island, or you got Germany. I said, well, neither. I've just bought a house. Literally just thought, right, I'm planning ahead, thinking of the future. Just bought a house, got my kids all settled in Amesbury. And he goes, right, Germany it is then. I said, oh, fantastic. Thank you very much for that. The good old style, he just like a little pawn, just pick you up and off you go. And then from there, I started getting a bit of a name for myself with the G4 side, and start getting myself a name for doing the health and safety, because I kind of took a bit of a shine to it. And then I started building up that profile. So I got promoted to an RQMS. So I was RQMS technical at the time, so the bullets and bombs and equipment. And then closed down Gutterslow. Okay, that was a job and a half of its own. A regiment had been there for 32 years. You know, had cellars, attics, and all sorts of things coming out of everywhere. We had to close that down and then moved back to Larkhill, which I was happy with because that's where my family was.
Yeah.
And then we moved the whole regiment across, and I was doing all the health and safety pieces bit for the regiment. So I then moved into the RQMS role. And then, and I just thought, right, I need to start building this up. And so from 2012, really in a nutshell, is I started, right, voluntold in health and safety. 2015, thought, I need to think about my future. So I started up SM safety training. And it wasn't consultancy, it was just training. So to begin with, it's first aid training.
While you were still serving,
thing for me to do. Yeah, whilst I was still serving. So I was basically doing it on the weekends, things like pediatric first aid. Because my wife, she was a childminder. Because she was a childminder, she had to go and do a pediatric first aid course. And I thought, there's a little market out there to do a bit of training, because especially Larkhill, because there are lots of childminders in Durrington and stuff. And I thought, yeah, do a bit of training in the weekends. And I attached to myself to another company called Wiltshire First Aid, and a lady called Emma Noakes, absolutely fantastic lady, knowledgeable. She's ex-police. And I said, look, can I just join on in the weekends and just learn the ropes? Because that transition from military talk that I've been doing for the last, I don't know how many years, then into civilian talk, how you kind of do that transition is, it's a whole new learning curve. How you speak to people, how you direct people, your mannerisms. And I thought, because let's face it, with the time I kind of joined, it was, it's a bit old schoolish. And I was used to that, and that was my mentality. And I thought, I need to change that mentality, trying to get in my head maybe a bit PC, a bit more kind of wishy-washy and fluffy-wuffy, and be a bit nicer and stuff. And actually, I picked it up quite quickly. I settled into it, to that sort of life instantly. So I was quite lucky. I know a lot of friends of mine, struggled with it, but I actually fell into it quite nicely, and I started doing the weekend work, doing the first aid, and then the health and safety bit kind of kicked in. I started delivering the IOSH managed safety courses. And then 2020, that was the end of my 22-year service. And I got poached by a chap called Vance Worsley. And he is in 1 Arty Brigade. Steve, do you want to come and work for us, as FTRS? And to be fair, I thought that's a no-brainer, because you've got COVID that just kicked in at the same time. And it allowed me to kind of reset myself a little bit from the big moves and everything from Germany, because it was quite stressful, there's a lot going on, to then start getting my own momentum, think, right, I can start building up my business on the side there a little bit more, got a bit more time to use. And, and I did that for a year. And then I went, do you know what? That was enough time for me to reset, because I went from like a busy RQMS role into a BQMS or CQMS, better known as most regiments look at it. And then started, but it's kind of really low level. I've gone from high intensity to really low level stuff where you're just booking white fleet vehicles for officers. And I went, it's great for 6 months. It was great because I was able to breathe and de-stress a little bit, because it was quite stressful. And then I went, this is not enough. My brain needs to be on the go all the time. I need to be full on, and because that's my nature. And then I said, right, I'll press the button. And within sort of 3 months, I was going out the door. But within that 3 months, as soon as I pressed that button, I went, what have I done? That scary moment, go, right, I've got to jump from a secure job into running my own business. And then running your own business, relying on potential clients and relying on some work. And I thought, well, I've got one client at the moment, that was a school. And I thought, have I done the right thing? And the good thing was from that is I thought, right, what can I do? What can I do to try and protect myself? Because I've done all the qualifications. I've done that resettlement piece before I was even thinking about getting out, because I kind of planned it from 2008 onwards, sort of think, right, I need to start thinking about Civvy Street.
Can we touch on that a little bit, Steve? can we touch
Yeah,
on
of
that a
course.
little bit? So you were naturally coming to the end of your service, but COVID was just kicking off around that time. So you had
Yeah,
a bit of a safety net with FTRS.
yeah.
What did your so did you do a 12-month resettlement program then, or did you
No,
jump into FTRS, then sign off from there? And their sign off is 3 months. I've never heard it explained. So could you touch on that? And then what
okay.
is the difference between a full resettlement and an FTRS resettlement?
Yeah, so well, during the time, I I kind of got poached by Vance Worsley, and he turned around and said, because at this time I was almost broken at the end of my career from moving the regiment across, and I went, I can't do this. Now I did get offered Veng, where you get the extra
Yeah,
2 years.
yeah,
I
yeah,
said I can't do this anymore because it's too stressful. And Vance turned around and said to me, "Do you want to come and jump over to FTRS straight away? And but you have to forfeit your resettlement." I
mm,
said, "Well, that's fine because I've already done my courses anyway." So I
right,
then kind of jumped to, so I didn't go through the CTP kind of avenue, but I was kind of already kind of prepared anyway, because
yeah,
I started my courses 2008, where I'd done MVQ assessing, and that was through the RATPD because I was doing MVQing for military transport, sort of like what do you call it? It's military transport for managers. So it's basically
yeah,
an MVQ version of that. I then got my MVQ assessor through. And, it's nice because I was getting an extra 50 quid here and there, just doing these works. So I kind of
yeah,
already kind of started preparing myself. And I was using my standard learning credits, majority of the years, that £175 that you get off the military. I was just doing little courses because it was
mm,
free. It's free money. And I thought, why not use it? And I know a lot of people go all the way through their careers, haven't actually, used their standard learning credits, that
yeah,
£175 to help them gain qualifications, a level 2 upwards. So going back to where you was asking, so from there, I started doing all the courses and so forth, and got to the FTRS, and then I then went to around and said, right, I want to do, I want to get out of the FTRS. I want to go out to Civvy Street. And the boss tried to convince me to stay. And I said, no. He goes, right, well, you actually get a resettlement package, from it. So then I did my resettlement through the FTRS, albeit it was very, very short because I was getting out within that 3-month period.
yeah,
So I know that every 2 years you get a full. So if you left the full service and then you've done 2 years of FTRS, your whole resettlement package resets.
right,
So
okay,
where you get your IRTC and you also get your leave, or your sort of like resettlement leave from that, where you can go
yeah,
do courses. I opted out of that. And looking back on it, was it a good thing? Well, yeah, to be fair, because for me it worked out. But actually, if I was to do it again, if I didn't have anything planned, then I would use
mm,
that full package, because it's there for you to use. And that's where then I decided to jump ship, jump into the real world. I got myself onto LinkedIn because I heard a little bit about LinkedIn. I wasn't too familiar with it, so yeah, get your CV on there. You never know, somebody might poach you. So I uploaded my CV and I started doing a bit of LinkedIn. And the weird thing is an old friend of mine that was on LinkedIn that she's seen me do a qualification because I posted on there, done an ISO 9001 lead auditors, which I got through the military.
yeah,
And that was if anybody can get a chance in the military to do that qualification, jump on it because it opened up a
yeah,
lot of doors afterwards. And he reached out because Steve, this mate of mine called Matty Oldham, he's got a health and safety company. I haven't spoken to him for about 15 years. And he
yeah,
just reached out to me. I've just seen your profile on LinkedIn, so you just done ISO 9001. Do you want to do a bit of ad hoc work? So I reached out with him. I said, yeah, of course, absolutely. And I reached out. We had a brew. We had and a few little chit chats. And he is able to offer me ad hoc work 3-4 days a week.
brilliant,
And I thought that is absolutely amazing. For me, it was amazing. I kind of done that bit of work, because let's face it, when you leave the military, it's a scary world of different activities, different organizations. You've got construction, you've got manufacturing, you've got care homes, schools,
Yeah.
and we don't always lean into that when we're in the military. But by actually building up a network, that LinkedIn for me is amazing, because he reached out and he kind of, well, at one point I was his boss, and this next point he is my boss. So
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
quite weird that way. But he actually taught me an awful lot, and he gave me the kind of the basic minimal jobs. And I thought, yeah, I could do this, and then started gaining the experience and building it up. And that's where it's kind of just led me down of this route of, it's been 5 years now, to come up to 5 year point where actually I've now got a fully fledged business, not having to rely on anybody. I'm now my sole boss, and actually, doing teaching courses and then doing consultancy, because, I look
Yeah.
after 27 other businesses, as well as do all the teaching on the NEBOSHs and IOSH and at
Yeah.
the level of the MVQ level 6. So
Yeah.
it's by all means, it's not been easy, and you do have to put the graft in, and what I mean by put the graft in, you don't sleep a lot. But if you want it, you can make it happen. And funny
Yeah.
enough, the military, the army, give me that mentality.
Yeah.
It's getting stuff done. If you want it, you work for it, and you can get the rewards at the end.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
just want to
the
touch
kind of
on a
line
couple of
we've gone
things
down.
there, Steve.
Of course.
Um, so you started doing consultancy work while you were still serving, and you're the second guest that I've
Yeah.
had on the podcast that has started something whilst they've still been serving, and they've used that time to get themselves established. So Luke, who runs Contact Coffee Co., I don't know if you've seen him on LinkedIn. He's very active on LinkedIn as well. Um,
Yeah.
he started that whilst he was still serving in the Marines. How did you approach that? Because I'm sure there's other people who will have ideas. It's an entrepreneurial world that we live in these days, and being able to
Yeah.
start something is a lot easier than what it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I think that maybe it's not easier, but the information's more readily available than what it was a long time ago. So how did you approach that with the chain of command then, that you were going to be, running a consultancy, so to speak, as well as, being in your regular job?
Um, the honest answer is I never really consulted them. I was doing everything within the background. I was doing
Right.
everything sort of like on a weekend type thing, where it's a bit of ad hoc work type stuff and gaining
Yeah.
experience. Bear in mind, majority of the work that I did was pretty much for free.
Right.
It's
Okay.
to gain the experience. So when I attached to
Yeah.
Wiltshire First Aid, to get the experience, I was doing a lot of first aid training with her to begin with, and then on the ad
Mm.
hoc, on maybe the odd Saturday, when I'd done my own bit of pediatric first aid, which is all kind of low level stuff for friends and family, as well as within the community. And basically, the part of that is trying to build up, give myself a name. Who's Steve Mullan? Oh, Steve Mullan, he does first aid courses. Oh, Steve Mullan, he does
Yeah.
a bit of IOSH course. And it's just being seen and just trying to get that word of mouth out there. And I did it. And you say that to about the chain of command. So when I was in Germany, so my last couple of years of service, I did approach my boss. Because look, the RACPD, which is basically the Royal Artillery charity, to support soldiers do the transition and the wives doing courses. They approached me, can I deliver a pediatric first aid course for them? So I approached my boss, the commanding officer and my QM at the time, and he goes, yeah, absolutely, go ahead. And they're actually very, very supportive of me doing that. And that was on a Saturday and a Sunday. But the thing is, because it's German soldiering as well, it's actually close-knit, it's all family-based. And
Yeah.
I basically done it for all the wives, and I taught the course for, I think, for 12 wives in total. To do that course. And that's where that sort of thing kind of built up. And the consultancy side of life, yeah, I did do that on a bit of a quiet. I did it on leave. So if I was on annual leave, I'll go and do consultancy work for a school. It's one of the schools that's down the road from me. It's called Shrewton, Appleford School, which and is a friend of a friend that recommended me, and then I went down there, and it was one of the scariest things I've ever done in my life, because it's always me being inspected. It's always me doing getting LSA or LEA, the inspections and so forth. And the next minute, I'm doing the inspecting, and people offer me tea and coffee and cakes. It's quite a scary thing. But one thing that the army has taught me, and it really has, is it's, even though when I first went to that school, there was 4 caretakers, and they've all done their NEBOSH courses. I thought, Jesus, they're going to have so much more experience than what I've got. I've just done my courses, but never done consultancy. So it's my first gig. And there's a series of questions I had to start asking them. And there's 4 of them there. And one thing that the army's always taught me, you can spot a blagger. Because I've blagged my way through lots of stuff, like from that inspection I said originally, and when you start asking them questions, goes like, display screen equipment, have you done any training? No, we don't have to. Okay, because you do it through the army all your life. Have you done your DSC assessment? Have you done your training? You get all the time, and that's what you have to do, because you've been told it about 1,000 times. And I went, okay. So I've started catching on what they were like, and then from there I went, can I just have a look at your policy, please? Because I thought their policy would state that they have to have training, have to have the risk assessment. And it did. And I went, dum. They went, yeah, but that doesn't matter. I said, okay. And then the headmaster pulled me to the side and just turned around and said, Steve, goes, are they trying to blag you? I went, all due respect, sir, because he's a headmaster. I treated him with the biggest respect. And then I turned around and said, sir, all due respect, said the findings will come out in the report of any recommendations that is required to make you compliant. And he just turned around and said, Steve, goes, brilliant, thank you very much. And then the next day he called me up, and I secured the job of being their health and safety consultant. From that but that's one thing the military taught me, is actually health and safety is process driven, the military is process driven, and you naturally just kind of fall into it. So it was either
I have the same in my world, Steve, with quality management. I'm in quality management. I'm a lead auditor as well. And you're right. And I think that's why service leavers make such good health, safety, environmental and quality professionals, because it's following the process. How many times did we do drill until we got it right? How many times did we repeat actions, repeat until you get it right? And that's all it is on the outside in our little sphere anyway, our little circle. So yeah, I get that.
Because I always refer back to when I turned around at any courses, any military personnel, I said, "Any got any skillies here? Anybody that run ranges?" Go, yeah. I said, okay. So do you know what SASIS work is? No. So what about a PAM 21? What about your RASPs? Goes, yeah. So what SASIS works? Oh yeah. And they know it all already. They just need to put a name to it, a civilian name to what they do, and they can go, makes sense. And that's how I'm. That's where I've gained a success, by getting soldiers the NEBOSH qualifications, because I can relate it from military into civilian language, and then kind of all it is just words. Because what you do is this and this and this and this, like you said, that process, it's absolutely fantastic, and they go, and everything just clicks, and they tend to be very good at it. Military personnel, very good at health and safety, I find.
So as you're finishing your time with FTRS then, and you're doing some consultancy work, what challenges are you thinking, or what? I mean, it's a big risk to take going from a paid position. A lot of service leavers are looking for that first role, which is a salaried role, which gives them a little bit of security. And obviously you've gone, nah, I'm going the other way. And you're going into consultancy, which is, risky because it only takes one job to go wrong and then your reputation's shot. You know, you
Yeah.
there's no guarantees. You might be somebody's consultant on Monday and by Tuesday you've been replaced through no fault of your own, whatever reason. Um, so what were you thinking at that time? Were you going through a process in your mind and weighing up the pros and cons, or were you just like, no, I'm committed and that's what I'm doing?
Uh, there was a lot of there's a lot of self doubt, to begin with. Is well, I say a lot of self doubt. It's a case of, can I do this? Can I build a business? And I was quite lucky because, in a way, because I had that guy Matty Oldham. He's got his own company, and I lent on him quite a lot. And
Mm.
he lent on me quite a lot, and I'm actually very loyal to him now. I still do consultancy work for him now. Only one job, bear in mind, because I was
You
committed to
served
it, and I
together,
thought, right,
Steve, right?
yes, yes. So we served. He
Yeah.
left in 2010, I think, and all this time has gone by, and it just randomly. I haven't spoke to him for many many years, and just randomly
Mm.
reached out. And I was kind of, he gave me 3 days of work a week. And even though it wasn't secure, I thought that's enough to potentially just get me started, start building up my own clients, start building up my own, do a bit of training. And then just don't get me wrong, you have to really kind of manage and look after your money, because I've still got a mortgage to pay, still got mouths to feed in the house, I've got two young children, go through school, etc. And I
Yeah.
just kind of went, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it. But I had a backup plan. I already had my HGV license. I'd done my CPC. So that means I knew if this failed, I can go do driving agency work. And there's loads of
Mm.
driving agencies around here. I thought, if it fails, I can just fall back onto that, and then I can kind of resort myself out if I need to, because I knew then I'll always have money coming in. I was very lucky. I didn't have to go down that road. It kind of worked for me to do that. And it's kind of started building up a network. And there's another health and safety company who I'd done a bit of training for, done a bit of IOS training for on an ad hoc basis as well. And, and I kind of lent on different companies. I've reached out to other companies. Could I do a bit of consultancy work for you? And they're paying me sort of like, I don't know, maybe £200 a day. Some cases, £100 a day. If I was teaching first aid, for example, paid quite low at the time. But it was money coming in, and it was enough to pay the bills. But I had that backup plan. I was always been an advocate of, if it goes wrong, what are you going to do? What's your backup?
Mm.
And I'm always kind of planning, strategizing, and then think, right, I've got my CPC there. I've got my driving licenses, which I could fall onto, and if this doesn't go right, but I knew it's going to take a lot of work to get this going, and I was fully prepared to work 20 hours a day. And don't get me wrong, some cases I have been working 20 hours a day, but if you ever run in your own business, you could ask anybody. It's
Yeah. We've all done
24/7.
it. Yeah.
24/7,
Yeah.
7 days a week. But if you're passionate about it and you love it, do it. And me
Yeah.
personally, I absolutely love it. I've never looked back since leaving. Not that I've had chance, to be fair. So forward, moving, charging forward, and actually go for it. But it does take its toll. Sometimes you sit there on a Sunday morning, and I was just about to go all the way up to Catterick. That's a 7-hour drive from where I am. And I sat there on a Sunday afternoon. It was a summer, and I looked at my wife and go, "What am I doing? What am I doing? Is this a life that I'm living?"
Yeah.
And then I got in the car and I drove up, got to Catterick, and then the next day I was absolutely fine. But just like everything's a bit like a roller coaster. You sometimes think, oh, am I going to get enough work for next month? Am I going to get this? And it's tough. It's no easy task running your own business, but it does give out a lot of rewards as well. And people say,
Mm.
Steve, you're doing really well. That's a reward to me. You know, people saying, "Yeah, you're doing really well, aren't you? 'Cause I could see everything that you're doing on LinkedIn, on social media. So you look like you're flying." But you know what they see is the success bit. What they don't see is the hard
Yeah.
graft behind it all. And if you want it, there's anybody can do this. You know, anybody, if you really want it, you can go and do it, and you have to work hard for it. But if you keep battling and keep pushing hard, you'll get there in the end, I believe. You know, and that's been my mentality for it. You know, but I've also had a very good support of my family as well. You know, my wife knew it. You know, she goes, you know, you left the army, that means you'd be at home more. But yeah, maybe I might be at home more, but I'm smashing out more hours. You know, she's there watching this Strictly Come Dancing, which is all fine by me. I'm on the laptop doing bits and pieces. You know, so it kind of balance. You have to try and balance it slightly, but it's a tough thing to do because it's almost like an addiction hobby. You know, it's running your own business. You just want to grow it and keep getting bigger and bigger and provide the best service you can to the soldiers. I mean, that's my kind of target because that's who I know. You know, I know their thoughts, I know their processes, I know how they think, but I also can translate that into civilian speak because, you know, I look after 27 companies myself and just about to take on a massive care home chain. It's looking at 40 care homes, you know, so things are start escalating. But I'm also using service personnel to do training for me now. You know, so it's bringing them on to help them, you know, and help them that transition period as well as, because I had that from Matty Oldham, you know, and I think, why can't I give it to somebody else? You know, it's only talking,
100%.
it's only education. It's not, you know, it's not too stressful, but it's giving people chances. But I know their work ethic. I know their mentality.
Yeah.
I know what, if they want to do it, they're going to go ahead and do it. I know they're going to turn up on time, and they actually are going to turn up, you know, and deliver the training, you know. But you also have to try and fluff them up a little bit, get that transition of how to speak to civilians as well.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so I've got a guy up north in Catterick, you know, Mark Arrington. He's delivered, I don't know how many IELTS courses for me now, and he's soon going to be teaching NEBOSH for me. I've got a guy down here in Larkhill, Lee Williams. You know, again, he's serving currently, and both of them are serving, and they're due to get out very shortly. You know, and potentially taking them on full time.
Yeah.
You know, so it's
Great
because
stuff.
obviously the business is starting to grow now, and you know, if I can bring them on as well as service personnel as transition, you know, they could have a bit of the pie as well. You know, so it's it's
Looking
busy
back,
time.
Steve. Yeah. Looking back, I mean, you like you said, you were voluntold to go in to do the health and safety stuff. So you've fallen into it, um, but you've made a success of it. In that time that you've been making a success of it, though, is there anything that you look back and think maybe I would have done that course rather than that course? Or it sounds like it all went swimmingly perfect and you've landed on everything that you needed to land on, and
No,
it's been this is what I'm getting to. Has there been any
yeah.
hiccups, and what did you learn from those along the way?
The biggest hiccup, well, the way I started off with first aid training, and the thing is, when you do the courses, right? Where I'd done a first aid at work course, and I'd done my a teaching course. Okay, so you're level 3 lifelong learner sector, so you can teach adults. Now you can do the courses all in the world. It doesn't make you the subject matter expert knowledge. You know, it
Yeah,
doesn't give you that knowledge. What gives you it is experience, and what gives you it is one of my biggest things was my own pride. Think I can do this, but actually I just remember teaching a first aid course and I was getting found out a little bit. You know, I think I haven't got the experience that I should have to be able to teach us. Even though, you know, and that's when I thought I need to reach out to somebody else. So that's why I went to Emma Noakes at Wiltshire First Aid. I went, I need to experience, because I went in this blind, you know, thinking I can go ahead and do this. And I think, well, actually,
yeah,
what I should have done was just reached out to people first of all.
Mm.
and but it makes you, when you stood up there in front of 12 people, and it was 12 ladies at the time, ranging from sort of like 18 to sort of like 64-year-olds. You got a 60-year-old this way, it's always the best way. You got the 17-year-old there, it's on the phone, and it's a diverse kind of variety of people. And I didn't have the experience where I think, so that was a big, big one that I learned there. The other ones was having systems in place when you go to do audits and inspections, is thinking that the questions in your head, but not actually having a plan or anything written out fully. When I first started off the school, I had a bit of a plan, had a bit of a checklist that I needed to do, but actually, even though I'd done the courses, but it didn't give me enough of experience to deal with different situations. And I don't know, it's just a bit, I felt it kind of knocked my confidence a lot, and because it knocked your confidence a bit. You think, am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right job here? Am I,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I don't feel confident to do this. So I had a bit of that kind of low confidence thing. How would I have done it differently? I would have definitely reached out to somebody a bit more experienced earlier on, rather than learning the hard way. Because it kind of filled you up with a lot of it kind of knocks your confidence. You think, I'm not good enough for this. I'm not doing this. What am I doing? And then, obviously, then I attached myself to Emma Noakes, and then I went to Matty Oldham. He reached out, and I was asking him all sorts of silly questions in the end, and I thought, what's he going to think of me doing this and doing that? But there's no silly questions. From that, that's where I learned a lot from it. Courses wise, so I would have, thinking back on it, maybe different course providers rather than sticking to just one. If I was going to go teach, because you learn different teaching techniques, maybe. I wouldn't not always sort of like sticking to one person where you think that's right. And if you had a little bit of doubt when you're doing those courses, you think, this ain't that great, this course, but you're stuck with it. With doing other ones, with some reason you went back to that person. I kind of regret that a little bit, where I potentially should have gone to somebody maybe a bit more competent. But what other things would I have done? Yes, so I'd done my MVQ level 6. So I started that in 2017. And I didn't finish that to 2022. The reason why I kept on parking it, I kept on just putting it to the side, because I was busy closing the regiments down. That transition of going into the FTRS, then I decided to run my own business. Took too much on, and I didn't do that MVQ. I could have done it a lot earlier. I should have done it in 2017 and committed to it, instead of just kept on parking it, extending it. Because what that done for me, that kind of slowed, in the end, it kind of slowed me down. It didn't give me that status, because when you do your level 6, that gives you that kind of one step up, where a bit more credibility, and you turn around and say, well, you're a practitioner now, and where you can start earning a little bit more money. I wish I had have, right at the beginning, done that course and actually just smashed it and just got it done, instead of extended it. It cost me a fortune, right? Every 6 months they charge me an extra 350 quid, so I must have spent that course probably a good 3 or 4 grand, whereas the course only should have only cost me £1,000 at the time, so that's where I regret that, where I should have actually committed to that and got it done, because that way I could have gone for my chart membership a lot earlier.
I guess you missed out then as well on those years of getting experience before you got out, didn't you, really?
Yeah, and it did. For me, that's a big regret. I should have got it done, and I should have committed to it. And in the end, I had to kind of put everything to the side, and I literally sacrificed, 3 months worth of weekends, and I literally done 10 hours Saturday, 10 hours on a Sunday, all weekends for 3 months, just to get that qualification done. Because I thought, I can't keep affording to spread it out. For instance, I could have done it
Yeah.
over the year quite comfortably, rather than actually just completed it within that 3 months. So for me, that's one of my regrets. I should have got it done, but it's
So
we live
anybody
and learn, don't we?
listening or watching, stop slacking and
Yeah.
get your courses done.
I honestly, I cannot recommend that enough, because when when you're out, and life is getting really busy, because Civvy Street is a different world, okay, and you start earning your money, you start putting the hours in. Whereas once you're in the military, you actually have more time on your hands that you actually realise that you can
Yeah.
utilise. And especially if you're doing the MVQ level 6, you've got abundance of evidence. You've got your JSP 375s, you've got all your armories, you've got all your risk assessments, you've got everything there that you can use,
Mm.
and evidence of emails, you've run mess functions and all this sort of thing. This is all planning, it's all policies. And I think, wish I'd have done that now, and do it whilst you're in. Honestly, it'll make your life so much easier, because when you get out, you don't get that 36 days holiday that you do get in the military. Okay.
Yeah.
You get your
Yeah.
25 days, and that 25 days you are resting because you want to go on a holiday with your family, or just to relax, rather than actually doing courses. So if you can get it done before you get out, that is the best option. The guys and girls, they've got the outcast funding, and they always leave it to the last year. So they get
Yeah.
3 lots of £2,000. You only can use 1 lot of £2,000 a year. So that's 3 years of doing courses. But, and when you leave the military, you've only got 5 years to use it. And,
Mm.
and to try and squeeze in courses and to make them max, squeeze as much money out of the military as you can. 'Cause let's face it, when you've done 22 years, you've given a lot to the Army, or the Air Force, or the Navy. You've given your life to them. Now it's your turn. You've got to start planning, thinking. 22 years, it's not long. It's a longer
Yeah.
time out of the Army than it is whilst you was in.
In it.
So
Yeah.
that planning
Yeah, exactly.
beforehand, if you can, it's definitely key. Get your MVQ done when you're in the Army. Trust me, you make your life so much easier. And you don't
Is
have
there
to give up your
anything,
weekends.
Steve, that you were worried about before you got out that turned out to be like just a complete myth? Or is there anything that you were worried about, either for yourself or for your family? Because there's people leaving with families that you say that you've realized actually, yeah, that was a reality. And, you know, what was the circumstances around that?
That's a tough question. What did I find most difficult with that? I think for me is interaction with people. Would I fit in? Would I be able to deal with civilians? Would I be able to deal with corporations, the larger companies? Do I understand their talk? From being 22 years in the military, you're effing and jeffing. Okay.
Yeah,
You've got that
yeah,
kind of, that's normal talk. And you've been doing that 22
yeah,
years. And, your sense of humor is quite dry and quite blunt at times. And my worry is what if I say something slightly wrong? If I say something slightly wrong, and if it's corporate, that could tarnish your name. It only
mm,
takes one comment on LinkedIn or on social media, and that's you down the pan.
yeah,
What if I go do consultancy work and I've given wrong advice? What I thought was right, but isn't right, because that's what I'd done whilst I was in the military, because it's normal to
yeah,
us at the time. Are they going to sue me? Are they going to take me to the cleaners? Are they going to take me to the courts? Are they going to send me to jail? Am I going to lose my house? Am I going to lose my livelihood? They're the scary bits, and they're the
mm,
bits where actually, and I said to my wife, I go, look, what if this happens? She goes, well, and she was actually really supportive. She goes, well, then we deal with it like we do like everything else that we in life, that happens
yeah,
in life.
yeah,
I said, Steve, you've been on sort of about 8 to 9 tours. You know, you've done Iraq, you've done Afghan, you've done Bosnia, Kosovo, you know, double over, etc. I said, you know, you've got put in situations where actually it's very uncomfortable, but you got through it, didn't you? And actually, she gave me the pep talk, which is normally the other way around. And I said, okay. And I kind of just went with it. And don't get me wrong, there's a couple of occasions where somebody's questioned what I've asked. And then I've looked back at it and go, you know, I need to look into that a bit more, than actually swallow my pride a bit more. Said, look, my apologies. You know, it's something to do with the smoking area. This one was, you know, you've got to have a shelter outside. It's got to be segregated. And actually, you've got to have that in place as a legal requirement. But actually, it's not a legal requirement, you know. And I think, but I come across that way and I got questioned. I went, ooh, you know, but I learned from that, you know, before I open my mouth, you know, make sure you know what you talk about before you do. But they're the little things that kind of scare the hell out of me, you know, and it's still always going to be something there, you know, because you always, you know, if over time it gets a lot easier and a lot better because the more experience you get, definitely. But yeah, there is a few scary moments there on that front. You know, and am I going to make enough money to be able to pay for the mortgage, etc.? But actually, if you reach out, there's a network, you know, and I feel like I should take out shares out on LinkedIn or something, but actually it really worked for me. It really did, you know, and people reached out to me, you know, and then I reached out to people, but you have to work hard at that. And actually I gained a lot of work from it. And then from there, it's just slowly but surely just kind of built up, and where now my own business is staying itself. It's doing really well. It's, you know, it's been great, but it's been tough at the same time.
Brilliant. No, it's really good. And you're not the first guest, Steve, to talk about that network, especially amongst, you know, the ex-services and the service leaver community. You know, I've lent on it myself. I've supported service leavers myself.
Yeah,
I've been connected with you on LinkedIn for quite a while now, and I've recommended you on a couple of occasions. You know,
I
I don't
appreciate
know
it.
you, I've never worked with you, but I can see the good that you're doing, and because you're from within that network, you know, there's that automatic trust that, you know,
Yeah,
if you're gonna recommend somebody, they're gonna turn up. You know, you talked earlier about turning up, people turn up, you know,
yeah.
so there's a lot to be said for that network. And
I mean,
one of the
I
things
mean,
I'm promoting through the podcast is the network. You know, use the
yeah.
network. Even before you get out, use the network.
But there's that group, you know, the Forces Transition Group. I don't know if you heard of them, you know,
Yeah,
FTG,
yeah, yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
you know,
John
John Stevenson.
Stevenson, yeah.
Now, I
He was
seen
my
John
first ever guest
Stevenson.
on the podcast.
Was he? Yeah, top bloke,
Yeah,
absolute top bloke. So I reached out to John Stevenson about 3 years ago, you know, and it was a friend of mine actually put in contact with him, Graham Collier. And Graham Collier goes, yeah, look, I've got a mate. He's an ex-Signals dude. You know, he's out there. He's growing this Forces Transition Group network where to help support service leavers transition, you know, from the military into Civilian Street. And then I reached out to John and I said, look, John, look, I'm interested. You know, can I jump on with your network and so forth? And this is quite a while ago. And he goes, yeah. We had a good chit chat on the online, and the way he was talking about it, I thought, do you know what? I could see what he was thinking. I could see his model, what he's trying to grow, and
yeah,
what his ambition was. And I thought, do you know what? I want a bit of that, you know, because I think that's
yeah,
a good avenue to go down. Not only for
mm,
me to, you know, I'm working with people who my kind of group of people, you know, military background,
yeah,
military mentality.
yeah,
And I see a lot of RSMs and sort of senior sergeant majors, you know, getting out towards the end of the career going, I don't know what to do. And I thought,
no
I'll never
idea
be
what to
that
do. Yeah,
person, but I
yeah,
want to help people not be that person. And I
yeah,
jumped on with John, and I'm part of his one of his businesses that, you know, goes along to his trade shows, and, you know, which I
yeah,
support doing the Bosch courses, trying to give them the training before they get out, so they've got a better chance to get into normal jobs. And and every
Yeah.
Forces Transition Group show, I give away 10 IOS courses. And
Brilliant.
it's just a little bit of me giving something back. It cost me an absolute fortune, and lose a lot of money, but actually in the long term, Steve, you've got to go bust before you actually make it as well.
Yeah.
But it's kind of helping a little bit. It kind of helps promote me at the same time, because being in in a community with John, he's also grown my name as well. He's also grown my business by saying, Steve, you're the only health and safety provider that I'm going to be using for the Forces Transition Group. And, and it's just growing and growing and growing. And that support network for the Forces Transition Group, it's been absolutely amazing. So we was just down Wetherby just recently, down the race course there, and the turnout was amazing. And the amount of people that's come and sit on my desk and booking in and say, Steve, look, I'm thinking about going to health and safety. So I'm not there to sell the courses, believe it or not. I'm there to help them transition and give them that advice. And it's literally just giving them advice. You go, do you know what? Brilliant. Cheers for that, Steve. I really appreciate it. And actually, that gives me a bit of a kick, in a bit of a weird way. You go, do you know what, Steve? And people reach out to me LinkedIn. I said, mate, ever want to ask a question about health and safety, how you transition to consultancy work, reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's only a 2-minute talk. Give you a message or give me a quick phone call. I don't actually mind.
Yeah.
And and actually, it starts growing you as a person, me as a company as well, and people start going, yeah, speak to Stevie Mullan, SM Safety. He's a really good lad. And since people start saying, oh, he's a really good lad, or he's doing this or doing that, that obviously grows my businesses at the same time, but helping people out.
Definitely.
And John's actually helped me do that through his network. And I think it's absolutely a fantastic thing that he's doing there. And it just helps. I see a lot of lost soldiers, a lot of lost military just walking into these and go, I don't know what to do. And actually, when they walk away, go, yeah, I've actually got a bit of a plan. And it's good.
Got a bit of direction.
And it got a bit of direction. Go, right, well, I need to get this qualification. I need to get my CV sorted. I'm going to attend one of his CV transition workshops. I think Paul there, who works alongside of him, he does all that sort of thing. And then you got LinkedIn master classes, all this stuff they're giving away for free. It's also just growing a massive network, so why not? And that's where I've kind of fallen into, and that's how I've grown as a company, through these different networks. And that one predominantly is my main one that I work with. It's FTG. So it's yes, shout out to John if you're seeing this, mate. I'll have a beer next time I see you.
Good stuff, mate. It's been really good to share your experience, Steve, and just get a different perspective on leaving, because your story actually is one which is quite uncommon, in that you started prepping long time before you, but by luck or judgment, whatever it may be, you started that journey a long time before you got out, and you were probably the most prepared guest I've had for leaving the military. Most people are like, I didn't have a clue what I was going to do. No idea. So it's been really good to hear. Yeah. And also, the fact that you have gone on to set up a very successful consultancy, again, that just shows me and confirms to me that there's a lot to be said for looking outside of the I want to say it diplomatically, the outside of that CTP tunnel as well, because it's great in what it does as a service, but there's other things available as well. And, you sharing your story helps people to understand what that looks like and how that can be achieved. So
just don't
thanks for that, mate.
Solely rely on the CTP. Don't always solely rely on it. Rely on your own ambition and drive, and think outside just that.
Exactly.
It's a bigger world out there, definitely. Because they just tend to channel you down one direction, and actually you need to be doing this, spreading yourself out a little bit more. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Anyway, mate, you don't get away scot-free because you don't spend 20 odd years in the artillery, dropping short, without getting up to some mischief. So remember it's going out onto the public forum. But have you got a dip that you'd like
That
to
worries
share,
me.
Steve?
Is there anything I'd like to share?
Yeah, have you got any dips that
No.
you'd like to share from service? I mean, I'm sure
Uh,
you've got loads. Come on. But is there one that's suitable for public broadcast?
Probably not. I don't know. It kind of caught me on a hop there, as I wasn't prepared for that question. I mean, I've done a few dodgy things in my time. I mean,
Is there something that you got away with, like you didn't get charged for, or you just ducked under something from the Razman or something, and you think, no idea I got away with that, but I did.
I still don't like the air my dirty laundry, to be honest, mate. Sometimes things that are best unsaid, and just kind of
All
left
right.
dead and
Well, I tell
buried.
you what, you've got a reputation to uphold, so I'll let you off. But your laugh and the way you've approached that tells me all I need to know. So I'll let you off. But listen, mate, it's been absolutely great to speak to you. And like I said, thanks for sharing your story because it's going to resonate, Steve. 100% it's going to resonate. There's somebody that's going to start going through resettlement now and start thinking about what am I going to do when I get out? And they're going to
Yeah.
listen to this or watch this on one of the various platforms, and they're going to go, I never thought about that. So you've done a great service, mate, to many people, I'm sure, by coming on. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. I will link all of your socials in the descriptions. So if
I
people do
appreciate
want to
it.
connect with Steve, you'll be able to get hold of him through one of those. Go and connect with him on LinkedIn. I do follow him on LinkedIn, and he's very active. For somebody that's running a business, I also know as a business owner how much time is taken up on the business and in the business. So to be able to put a few minutes into LinkedIn, it takes some thought process to it. So, if he's on there and you spot him, go and connect with him and anything you need, health and safety wise, he's your man. I guarantee it. Steve, thanks ever so much, mate. Like I
Appreciate it.
said, it's been a pleasure. And I wish you
Likewise.
continued success and a great week ahead.
Brilliant. Thank you for having me, Mark. It's been my first experience of podcasting, so it's actually good. Quite like it. I like it.
Yeah,
So
there you
yeah,
go.
like and
There
subscribe,
you go.
tick, and all that sort of thing. I see that on YouTube.
Brilliant.
First time I've ever said
There you go.
it.
There you go. All right, Steve, I'll let you go. Thanks a lot, mate.
Right, take care. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.